Alright, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is the kind of user functionality. One thing I tried to do, but I did not end up doing, is making a camera manager, and my own kind of camera system, which is my P2 camera, which derives from camera. I tried to make it so I could have multiple cameras in a scene, and then just pretty much set which camera the render is looking at. Only problem is that Azul's cameraman has so little functionality that it's almost impossible for me to actually get the system working, or if I do get it working, it would be very, very, very sloppy. And that's because I was working under the impression that we can't change any of the Azul engine components, because I was told we were supposed to act as if it was a library we couldn't get into. What my thought process was is because I'm going to do the sound system, and I'm going to have a listener, and I wanted to have some way to easily kind of attach or just say what the listener for the scene is, because in my inspiration, which is Unity, you only have one audio listener in a scene, and you have to pretty much say who your listener is, whether it be like a camera or a game object. But in that case, I have to derive the my camera from a listenable or audio conscious, whatever you want to call it, class. But there's a huge problem with actually getting these cameras to work. So basically, because I only have one real camera, due to the cameraman setting only one camera and having no set camera, I have to pretty much use that one camera, but I have inconsistent data. So for instance, in the set orient and position, the second parameter is what you want to look at, but I can't copy that information from one camera to the next because the camera doesn't actually hold that data. Instead, it uses that look at to create a direction. I can get the direction, but if I try to put it and copy it here, it's obviously the wrong data. So I thought that if I could get the direction and then set the direction, but there actually is no set direction method. So I have just pretty much inconsistent data all around. The only way I could get past that was to have my own methods, so set, look at, position, and up, which just pretty much, instead of using the set orientation, you would have to use these functions in order to get it to work. But that is super sloppy because I still end up having the set orientation and position from deriving from camera, and I can't hide it because there's no access to the Azul files. So pretty much all in all, it's not impossible, very, very, very sloppy and inconsistent, so I decided not to go with it. So the next thing I did for the engine usability is I created a sound tester, which is just to test my actual sound system that I have so far, which I made after I finished the first version of it. And because of the sound test, I pretty much ended changing the entire thing, even though I'd already had it done, but that's fine. Originally what happened is I would have a sound.h, which is just an object that represents a sound. So a game object has a sound. But the thing I did before was, even though the game object has a sound instance, that sound could be played multiple times. So for instance, if I have a machine gun, and when I spawn a bullet, I call bullet sound, like playing the bullet on the actual railgun itself, I could do that, and I can have multiple sound instances. But that didn't really make sense because the bullet is the one that's making the sounds, not the railgun. So there would only be one sound per railgun bullet. So I did a little research to see if the multiple sound thing was a good thing or not, by using Unity. And in Unity you can only actually have one audible sound per sound object. So what ends up happening, if you play a sound twice and the first one's still playing, it actually just makes that sound restart instead of playing two instances of those sounds. So I ended up changing my whole audio system so that it does the same thing, where each audio sound object can only play one audible instance at a time. Okay, so for the individual project, I pretty much have all of the 2D sounds done. I have all the functionality for the 2D sounds and also the foundations for, I guess, the sound system project as a whole. So pretty much what I have, starting from the highest level of system, is I have the sound system, which is in charge of actually playing sounds, either if it's 2D or a 2D looped, to check if a sound's playing, pause the sound, stop all sounds, etc., setting the main volume. All this is pretty much, on creation, it makes an instance of an Erklint engine, and then uses that engine to play sounds. So playing 2D just checks if it's paused. If it's paused, it just pretty much sets it to the start of that sound, because like I said before, Unity, the same way Unity works is if you have a sound and it's already playing, but you play that sound again, then it just sets it back to the beginning. And that's what this is doing. If it's paused, it'll set it to the beginning. If not, then it'll just start a fresh sound. Same for the 2D looped pause sounds, just pauses it. Main menu, the main volume sets the main volume. Remove from active is something that is called later on that I'll explain. So that's pretty much the sound system. It's just in charge of keeping a reference of all the active sounds and actually playing them. I guess I should have. The sound manager is pretty much the sound asset manager. All it does is load sounds and creates sound, because what this does is pretty much keep a map of all of the sound sources we have. In a sound source, you can think about it as basically just the actual information of what a sound file has. And the sound is just getting that sound source, but it also has some manipulators like sound effects, if that's pause or if it's playing. Yeah. So creating a sound just creates an actual sound file. Not a sound file, an actual sound, which is my object, the class that I've made. But in essence, the load sound just pretty much gets the sound if it's not already loaded. It tells the Erklint engine, so that sound system get sound engine, it tells it to add a source, so a sound source from the file, and then it loads it into the map. And then creating a sound pretty much just goes into that sound source database and then creates a new sound. From that sound source. So the sound pretty much just is a data that tells how to play the sound source and manipulate the actual active sound. So a sound source is kind of, as I said before, the master copy, so it tells you what the actual sound sounds like. But the sound is a manipulator of the sound instance you get back. Because in Erklint, you tell it to play a sound source and it'll spew out a sound pointer, which is their I sound. And this sound manipulates that I sound. It just tells it to pause, to play as looped, or play, actually that shouldn't even be there. So sorry about that. Yeah, you can ignore this play looped. So pretty much playing, as you can see, it says my playing mode play. And playing mode is just what it does depending on if it's looped or not. So I have a base right here that just has play, and so burst mode, which is the non-looping one, just tells the sound system to play a non-looping sound, whereas a looped one tells it to play a looped sound. And that's to avoid the any if statements and for efficiency. So that's what that is. It just plays this sound depending on what playing mode it is, which you can just set here. Set looped. If it's true, then you'll get the looped mode. If it's not, then you'll get the burst mode play. The next thing I'm going to do is just test my sound system. In order to fully test my sound system, there's a few rules I have to talk about. These rules pretty much are from my knowledge of Unity and how it works. So pretty much with the Unity sound, if you play a sound that's already active, then all that happens is that sound resets. If you pause a sound, then it gets paused. The way to unpause the sound is to call play on it again. If the sound is paused and it's still in the middle of that sound, then it'll just resume it. But if you call pause on a sound that's not playing, then it'll just not do anything. When you play it, it'll start from the beginning. When you switch between is looping or not looping in the middle of an active, then if it's looping and you say it's burst, then at the end of that section of the loop, it'll stop. As in, it'll play that in that round, and then it'll just not play again. If you loop during a burst sound, then it'll just continue looping. And you can switch between them at will. So the first one is pretty much just loop, burst sounds. So I'll press it again, and then I'm going to switch to loop mode. So this is loop mode. And I can stop a sound. That's stopping a sound. Then I'm going to go into the burst mode and then switch to loop. Switching. Oh, sorry, that was burst mode button. Okay, switching. So as you can see, it switches to loops. Now I'm going to switch to burst in the middle of a loop. So there you go. And if I play again, it should still be burst. Yep. So that's pretty much it. And then testing also that it works with other sounds. I have another sound, so I can stop. I'll loop the gunshot. I can stop it and not affect the other ones. I can also stop the other one, and then I'm going to start the looping again. Start the music and stop the music, and then we'll keep going on. So pretty much all of the 2D is done.